District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village. Convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. And it's our monthly edition. Sometimes, the month is so good that we can have it many times of our mental health matters. We're talking about, complementary therapies in mental health. We want you to be a part of our discussion, so stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And thanks too to Dr. Alexandra Boyden. She makes this show so easy to produce that I just get up, comb my hair, and I'm here, and I'm ready to go. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Boyden. It's a pleasure once again.
Yes, no, thank you. You've been seeing a lot of us this month, but we're excited to be back, and I think this is actually a really fun panel today. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Well, I appreciate always the information you give me. I enjoy my readings again last evening, and very excited. You get to learn, and I'm mindful a little. Learning is a dangerous thing. More and more as I sit in these panels, I realize how true that statement is.
Fair enough.
All right. As we go around our table, perhaps through you, I'll invite Mr. Bob Jones, perhaps a brief introduction. And it's a pleasure. I've seen you from a distance a few times. I was actually mistaking you for Chuck Norris, so I do apologize.
Okay, no, people do that.
Yeah, I can see why, man. I see why. But good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you. Introduction?
Please.
Social worker from Canada, and I've been working here in Cayman initially way back in 87 and left and came back again, I think, in 2010. Now I'm working with Infinite Mind Care and specifically doing neurofeedback. I've been a therapist before that, but now that's my niche.
All right. Well, at some point, if it's okay, that we can talk about that if you can. And then
that's the plan.
We can. We can.
Yep. I didn't have my chocolate yet today, so. All right. Amy's sister, Miss Rachel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Farrington. I work at Infinite Mind Care, and I was introduced to neurofeedback through Bob and Sutton, and that's specifically what I do now, but I'm also studying to do my master's, and I'm planning to go away next summer to finish my practicum and come back to practice psychotherapy and neurofeedback.
All right. Well, Ms. Jada, it's a pleasure to have you back. If you only wish to, maybe a brief intro. Jada Bernard, one of our interns over on course, but welcome back again.
I'm Jade Barnard. I'm still a high school student, but I'm interested in studying psychology or neuroscience. So Dr. Boden has given me the opportunity to intern at OnCourse this summer.
All right. Well, welcome, and I hope that you enjoy your time here in the studio with us. Definitely. And I think that there are many people that you could, be in a better company than Dr. Boden. So she's a great mentor.
We're happy to have her too.
All right.
Thanks.
Now we talk about complementary therapies or complementary therapies. I was sitting early, thinking chocolate, coffee, fishing. They work for me.
Yeah. Well, and actually, all of that kind of falls into the realm as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that I really like this. So we do a lot of talk about kind of traditional therapy and psychotherapy in the office and how it works, and CBT and DBT and solution focused and psychodynamic, and we've talked about the different kinds of therapies before. And we've also talked a lot about medications. So today we're actually looking at sometimes called alternative therapies, but I was reading up and I think the term right now is complementary therapy. So it's not instead of the others, but a lot of times these will work to complement work being done in traditional psychotherapy. And it can incorporate, so today we'll be looking specifically at some of the equine-assisted therapies. So that's something that I offer up at Cowboy Town Stables with Ms. Shayna Pandui. Neurofeedback, which actually Mr. Bob and Rachel have worked with a lot of people on Island. I've heard lots of good things about the work that they're doing. And so that's a really interesting option that's new to the island as well, and really helpful because there's a lot of other options that aren't available here. So I'm glad they're here doing it. I'll be joined shortly by Miss Anna Witten right now, who's a holistic health coach. So I'll be looking at, and Miss Anna's worked with me with a lot of my clients, especially with eating disorders and eating difficulties. So looking at lots of different ways that we can work in other modalities to support the work being done in therapy.
And I think sometimes when we look at words, it's not just semantics. We see the power of words, how it can incite, how it can be insightful, how it can inflame. And, the word complementary versus alternative in and of itself, even though we may say it mean synonymous, people's interpretation, application, and just a general feel can be indicative. So, well, from that perspective, I heard psychotherapy at times, and I always wonder about it. But let's start with neurofeedback, your area of expertise. Share with us, what is it?
There's so many ways I can answer that. We've talked about this. How are we going to talk about neurofeedback? And what comes to mind, and I think for both of us, is in terms neurofeedback really is related to trauma. And trauma is something that I really didn't know very much about 12 years ago, and now that I feel like I'm immersed in it, or we're immersed in it. But we look at trauma on at least two levels. One is developmental trauma. I suspect everybody's got trauma from developmentally from being a child, and my own feeling is that when I was a parent and my kids are small, I really didn't know how to love properly. And I'm embarrassed to say that because you make mistakes, and as time goes by, I've learned a lot. And I realize that I've added to their developmental trauma problems. And then there's trauma where it's a life-death situation, and I think we know more of that through news feeds and whatnot. About people going to war, Iraq, Iran, and all those kind of places. And we're really touching into the brain here. This is the neurofeedback. And I want to add that we've changed so much. I know it's changed so much in the last 10 to 20 years in terms of my understanding of those things, but we're now talking about fight, flight, and paralysis in the brain and the mechanisms in the brain and how they've affected us and they stay with us. Neurofeedback is all about training the brain out of those reactions that are, for the most part, unconscious. Certainly when I've worked with people in the past and it was on the talk level, I found it very difficult to get people to stop being anxious or learn how the skills of stopping your anxiety. And neurofeedback does that without the person doing anything other than sitting in a chair and relaxing and watching a screen. And so it's an amazing difference. And we see all the time with clients that come through there, these transformations. At some point, I'll go over some symptoms so it's really clear what are we actually changing.
All right. We would, as you said, some of us might be thinking hypnosis. Yes. Does that play in to part of it as well?
I would think so, yes, very much so. Don't ask me to explain how, but I think hypnosis is a way of interacting with the neurocircuitry in a way that helps rewire the brain, as does EMDR and other modalities.
You'd use the EMDR as well?
I don't know, but everybody, it seems, no, maybe not everybody, but many people at Infinite Mind Care does.
Maybe we'll chat about I've been reading a bit on it and it's interesting.
We just did the training. It's really interesting.
Yes.
Is that a bit for all of us? I wouldn't mind doing it.
Yeah. No, it is interesting, but it is that is more of a psychotherapy. It's the neurofeedback's actually got like machines and stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah. And that's the part that maybe but before we go to the break, let's welcome Miss Anna. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you for having me.
I love the entry as you were being introduced. I was just waiting for the horses and the trumpets, but we didn't have
I'd have beat traffic faster if I'd been on a horse, let me tell you.
You can borrow mine next time.
Okay, noted.
It's a steed. But good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for coming. You've been here before, and it's a pleasure. For our listeners, just a brief intro, please.
Sure. My name is Anna Wooten. I'm a holistic health coach, so I have a practice of my own. I personally choose to focus on coaching with eating disorders and disordered eating habits. So it's a nutritional training, but it goes a bit broader than that. It goes into the behavioral patterns of eating and body image, and I tend to work a lot as a complementary therapist with, if someone does have an eating disorder, I do require them to be seeking treatment from a counselor or a therapist at the same time as seeing me so that we can work on different aspects. So it is very much in that sense like a complementary therapy.
I like the fact that you said not only eating disorders, but disordered eating habits.
Yeah.
And as I was just saying earlier, words, but not just the word itself, but how the word is structured in the sentence. Those are two distinct things.
Yeah, they can be. I mean, you don't have to have every symptom or be diagnosed with anorexia or bulimia to have an unhealthy relationship with food. I think there's binge eating disorder, but there's also just people that find that on occasion, and maybe not all the time, they lose control around food, or they will restrict their food to respond to an emotional trigger. Maybe it's loneliness, or that could cause a binge or restriction, or it could be a form of kind of self-soothing or control. And all of those are, it's very hard to have a perfect relationship with food. There really is no such thing. We are raised in a culture that associates it with emotion and tradition and celebration. So it gets very messy very early. But I think a lot of what I tend to focus on, there's elements that will overlap, but with the coaching, I try to be very practical. How do you approach your next meal? How do you approach your day-to-day eating? To complement hopefully the deeper work they're doing in therapy. But I also think it's important to look at how to remove guilt from it completely, how to remove this emotional attachment to food, because that's what keeps the cycle going generally. We can all have a day where we overeat, but if we don't attach much meaning to that and just let it be what it was, it's less likely to become a habit. And it is the habits that tend to disrupt our lives the most, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as you sit up thinking of two things, when the guy asks my father how he wants his food, he say cooked. I was thinking, but that even sort of unhealthy relationship, your food makes you think, I take my box of chocolate to bed with me. Is that probably unhealthy? I just kidding.
You have to give her a call afterwards.
We need to explore a little further to understand the whys and hows, but I'm not here to judge, and that's the main thing is the judgment with food, right?
Yeah, judge not lest you do judge.
If you don't mind it, then it's
keeps you warm.
doing it.
No,
The coaching relationship is different than the therapy relationship, and so I know clients that have worked with both myself and Miss Anna have found it really helpful, and so have I, because she has a different perspective and different skill set to offer, and of course with her personality and what she brings to the table as well, a lot of clients have really appreciated too.
All right, well, let's pause and take a short break, and as we return, I'll invite you to continue to share with us. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Subway's giving you flavor around the clock with the new Chicken Squad sandwich options. Try the classic chicken and bacon ranch, the sweet and savory barbecue chicken, or the chicken cordon bleu. 3 new appetizing and delicious sub options that you can also make into a wrap. The Chicken Squad is available at Subway for only a limited time. Subway, giving you something to cluck about. Stay clean, stay safe, hey man. Reflection sells gallons of sanitizer for only $25. Buy 2 clip-on sanitizers for just $5. Reflections has the best KN95 masks or reusable cloth masks, and you can get 2 for only $5. Blue surgical masks and face shields are available for children and adults, as well as 10 and 50 packs of black surgical masks. Volume discounts available at Reflections, Jose's Rubus, Reflections Hemp and Tobacco, all 5 Liquor for Less locations, and Food for Less, open 24 24 hours every day. Don't miss the Liquor for Less incredible Priced Better markdown. Hundreds of fine from $2.99. Cases of ice cold below wholesale prices. Save $10 off liters of absolute exclusively at Liquor for Less. Prices so low, we can't say them on the radio.
As the community continues to take precautions from COVID-19, it is important to stay prepared for other disasters now that we're in the hurricane season. Here are some post-hurricane safety tips from the Department of Environmental Health. Some tinned food items may still be safe for consumption after contact with flood water. However, tins must then be immersed in a solution made of 2 tablespoons of chlorine bleach per gallon of water for 10 minutes. Ensure that containers are air-dried before opening. For full guidance on post-hurricane safety tips, visit www.deh.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks very much for joining us. It's another edition of our monthly, maybe we'll make it a daily mental health matters, because without, true health and wealth. Dr. Alexandra Borden, thank you very much.
I'm willing to be here whenever you want.
I must say, I'm so grateful that you've always been not just so gracious with your time, but so instructive. And these discussions, I'm hoping that we'll get all of us to appreciate that talking to someone that, in a confidential, competent manner is actually beneficial. And I'm glad to see our community is accessing more and more. And it really is beneficial to our own well-being, but as a collective society. So thanks very much. Yeah. But we're talking about this complementary therapy soon. Take us through it, because I'm excited.
Yeah. So as I said, these will be different therapies that we often use as an adjunct to the typical psychotherapy. And I know, we've talked for however many years we've been doing this show about how, a lot of times therapy is a newer idea in Cayman. I did all my training in the States where people tend to be very open about things, so it's newer. And done a lot of work about talking about talk therapy and how it works and how beneficial it definitely can be. But I know there's also a lot of concerns about medications as well. And so, these therapies are something that can be done to augment whatever's being done either in talk therapy or even if you're in treatment with a psychiatrist with medications. These are other things that can be brought in to tap into other avenues. So I do the equine-assisted psychotherapy up at Cowboy Town Stables. And I know we've talked about a lot of other ones. So today we've got neurofeedback and health coaching highlighted too, but we have a lady that does art therapy. There was someone who was doing music therapy, movement therapy, which is more with dance or with drama. So there's a lot of different kinds of therapies. And so a lot of these tap into other ways of bringing about changes, either in the mind or the body. And so other ones might include things like acupuncture, aromatherapy, light therapy. So they use a lot of that, especially with like the seasonal affective disorder for, I know I've talked to a lot of my students that are in the UK about that, massage, meditation, pet therapy, yoga. So these are things that can be done outside, a lot of times through making changes in the brain, changing the ways that we're thinking, changing the way that we're using our bodies in order to bring about this kind of greater change that we're looking for. And I made a joke on the break that, a lot of my clients that kind of get stuck are the ones that in particular I look for. I've sent a few for neurofeedback to be able to get help with them. Because it's a different way of approaching things and creating change. Likewise with the horses. With the horse therapy, it is, and I do equine-assisted psychotherapy. Shayna also offers therapeutic horsemanship, which is also great for skill building and building confidence and building that relationship with the horse. But these other kinds of therapies tap into parts of the brains that we don't use in the talk therapy. Sometimes it can be hard to talk about the problem. Either we're not sure what it is, it's embarrassing, we're not understanding it. So particularly clients that kind of get stuck in traditional therapy, I think that these can be really helpful to tap into a different way of seeing things. When I've taken clients from the office to the arena with the horses, a lot of times it brings about different emotions and change in the moment. We get major emotional releases, major insights that come up from the work with the horses. And it's different because it's not like, oh, my boss is so mean and I have anxiety because I'm an overachiever and I'm perfectionistic and I've got black and white thinking. No, it's like that horse is in the corner because he's unsure of how to get through the obstacles ahead of him. And it becomes about the horse. So they're out, they're moving, and the horses give an opportunity to create change in the moment.
And they're non-judgmental for the most part. They don't look at you.
Exactly. They are herd creatures, so they're very good with reading social cues. They're also prey animals, so they respond very quickly and in the moment. And it's interesting. Between clients, we'll have one client come, do a session, they leave, another one comes, and the horses will react completely different. So the horses really do react to whatever's going on with the client.
Almost like a very young child,
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch.
2,000 pounds. Very young child. But I will say the size of them also, I think, is a part of the change. Working with the horses, either they're horse lovers, and so it's a different aspect anyway, but the size of the horses actually kind of tends to bring a bit of anxiety, which can create change more quickly too. It's very different. With the Igala, the horses are loose. The horses are expected to be horses and respond as they see fit to what's going on. So that's, I think, part of the beauty of the horse therapy. But just like how that gives a different way of talking about things and tapping into things, even things like art therapy. We had a lady come and do art therapy demo in my class the other day. And it's interesting how much she can read into paintings. I won't be painting in front of her again. But it was great. She picked up on things I didn't even think of. And all my students as well were like, that was so amazing. It was a 10-minute demo. So it really taps into other things. And so it can create bigger changes that we may not see in traditional therapy.
In asking that then, and again, I say this publicly, I truly enjoy this program because you get a chance to learn. I feel like a student in a class, but in a seminar where you can sit and ask questions and have that one-on-one feedback with the professor as well as with your students. And our relationship to food, our relationship to music, to different things, just my thought, and I wanted to throw this on the table, perhaps through you, Bob, initially. We don't probably see, again, Dawn, you guys are the professionals in this area, so that unskilled, untrained person in this field. I'm thinking the brain does things just like how our body reacts in certain way. The little, what would I say, the body language, without us realizing that people around us see the shift, who are attentive. So we're drawing something, and the person who knows can look at it and go, well, that's just not just an axe, or that's not just this, or maybe it's a food. With your feedback and your therapy and the like, how does it work? Give us a perspective so that you give us an understanding of what we're doing.
Well, one of the ways it does work, and I often say to people that as we do this, as you do your training, you're going to become your body more. You're going to move from being your mind to more your body. I usually have a few stories that I'll add to make sense of that. That we were born as children. When we were born, we were totally in our body. We were totally sensory, and we really got. We learned to get out of our body because it wasn't very useful. Many parents, and I'm from a family where we didn't talk about our feelings. So if you don't talk about your feelings as a child, you're not going to be in your body. You're going to learn to go into your head. When you're 2, you start developing language on your right side, and pretty soon you start problem solving. Well, you had a lot of resources in your body. Now, I know that certainly happened to me. I just didn't have any trust in my body. It was all, if I can't think about it, then I'm not going to do it. So neurofeedback, and I've heard other specialists in the field who are actually world famous. I'm thinking of Seaburn Fisher. She talks about when she started neurofeedback, and she was the therapist at the time. She was really into her head, and she didn't have a good body attachment. Now she's much more into her body. She became her body. And with the clients we do, we hear them talking about, I'm much more aware of my body now. I know what I'm thinking, and it becomes specific, where before it was just dummied down. Does that fit what you're asking? I can go on from there.
No, I want you to, because I think sometimes we look at some cultures in particular, how they seem to be more in tune with that.
Yes.
And then some perhaps in the Western world will look at that in a very judgy sort of way.
Yeah.
And even those of us who may have experienced certain things can pick up on social cues, and we all know someone who, man, she's good at reading people. Sort of similar, but explore more with us.
Any thoughts about that for you, Rachel?
I will say that neurofeedback does help you to get in tune with your body. It makes practicing mindfulness easier because you're more calm and regulated. And with that I feel like your social cues do improve. You're more aware of yourself, you're more aware of others, and you can start to pick up on reading the room. You know, is this person comfortable talking to me? What's going on with their body language? But not to the point where you're thrown back into high arousal. It's in a calm state. So I think that might be answering a little bit.
No.
Could you guys break down as what happens in a session?
In the actual session. Yeah. Well, the first session is specifically to assess symptoms, and if we get to that, I have a whole page with these many symptoms that are all related to trauma, to fear, and these are all the symptoms we target. So when I'm talking to do an assessment on somebody, they're going to have a handful, anywhere from 10 to 20 is a lot. And that setup when we start off is our guide. So every time somebody comes in after their first training, we go over the list of their symptoms and we ask the question, what's better, what's worse, what's not changed? And that educates us or informs us of how we may want to make some adjustments to what we're doing. So what is it that we're doing? So once that initial session's done, they come in and their head's measured, and we're going to make marks. I make marks on their skull, so I know where to put some contacts. And I'll end up putting 4 contacts on their head in most cases. And those contacts are just to read their brain waves.
So it's like natural impulses, similar to a leak?
Nothing goes into their brain. So I want to find out what's in their brain and send that signal through an amplifier to my computer, my software. And then from there it goes up onto a screen in front of them, the TV screen. And that's where they get the feedback. And there's actually a little vibrating box we use. So now we're talking about how does your brain communicate? Your brain communicates sensorily. So what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you taste, what you smell, that's how the brain communicates. It doesn't talk to us. It can, but it translates. So they're going to be sitting there, and and I'll make this as simple as I can. We're going to replicate on the screen their regulation cycle, and it's going to be an up and down, bright, dull, bright, dull, bright, dull. And it's going to be at a particular setting that we've set, and initially it's going to be a guess, an educated guess where that should be. And what we're going to then find out from our client is feedback about how are you being affected. So they're sitting there, and we're watching a timer, and we usually wait for about 1.5 minutes, and then we'll say, hey, how's this feeling? Quite often, for a while, it's going to be nothing. I just feel fine. I'm relaxed. And as soon as we get whatever we get, we probably will make an adjustment and go to a different setting and a different setting until we finally get feedback. I have an analogy I use with my clients, and that is I'm going to take you down this road. If I'm in the middle of the road with you, you're going to feel relaxed. I mean, not just relaxed. I walked in and sat down in this comfortable chair relaxed. More than that. Sometimes to the point of my eyes are getting heavy. And that tells me we're in the middle of the road. That's where I want to be. But it could be I'm going to go off to the left and into the ditch. And if I go into the ditch, you're going to feel sedated. Normally people start crying. And that tells me, oh, I'm not in the middle. I'm off to the left ditch. And I very quickly make an adjustment, and we come back towards the middle. And it's really useful because now I know where the middle of their road today is. Or they're going to go to the right ditch. I'm going to put them in the right ditch by my settings. And they're going to be anxious. They may be irritable. They're going to have tension in their chest, and it's not pleasant. That's great. That's a reference. I then will move them to the middle. So what we do in the chair is make those adjustments to get some people to go down this road, and after we've kind of know generally where they're going to be relaxed. We're going to keep going to this relaxed spot. Now, the interesting thing with the brain is wherever we start at, where they start getting relaxed, and next time they come in, that's not going to work. Their brain's going to want to go farther and farther. And what it's doing is it's relaxing. The frequency that we're setting is going down, lower and lower, till we get to what's called their optimal frequency. And that is, we'll stay there. That's the training frequency. That may take 5 weeks. And even then, we may, or likely, we'll make some minor adjustments as we go along. So what we're doing is, that says it all. You may ask me a question, because to me that seems really clear, but we're just getting people we're just getting the brain. We're figuring out where the brain wants us to be, and that's what guides us to getting them regulated.
And as you attach these leads, I think these wires to it, and you ask, how's that feel? You see they're not feeling anything.
Yeah.
Nothing's going. But how then do they feel if nothing is entering their brain?
Well, they're watching a screen, and they're actually getting feedback through the frequency coming from the screen. Want to add to that?
Yeah. So when the electrodes are attached to your scalp, you're looking at a screen, and you are essentially watching your own brainwave activity.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at the screen, we don't notice anything, but as soon as it's your own activity, you see it. And usually, you start to feel some changes. So if we're too high, you may feel some tightness in your chest, and then we're like, okay, we'll go lower. And then if we go too low, it might feel heavy on your chest, or you might cry, and then we go a little bit higher. There are some people that don't really feel too much in session, and then we kind of have to gauge where to go, and then it's really important to see what's happening to them after session.
Right.
What's happening that night, how did they sleep, how are they the next day, and then we know, do we need to go up or down in the frequency to find their optimal frequency.
All right.
I think it's cool because we make CBT therapists who do a lot of deep breathing.
Yeah.
And, and we do get subjective feedback. How do you feel? Do you feel more relaxed? But this is kind of a cool way of actually being able to see it.
Yeah.
Which is something that I can't do in session. So I think that's a cool option with this, is actually kind of having a graphical representation of your activity level.
Yeah. And the brain is fascinating. All right. Let me keep my brain engaged with Susan's body language. Let's pause. Take that break. 5 minutes and 47 seconds over, but we'll get there. Join us after the break.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office. Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom-designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks for joining us on our monthly Mental Health Matters show as we speak to Dr. Alexandra Warden, her intern, Gina Bernard, and of course, Sana Wooten, together with, make sure I say Rachel Farrington and not her sister, together with her colleague over at Infinite Mind Care, Mr. Bob Jones. And, I've always believed that the brain, and we joke, we should engage in our brain before we open the mouth. We say all sorts of things, probably the least used, organ is the brain, and we make fun of it. But it's so fascinating with what we do. We see with our eyes, but we also see with our ears. We eat, not just with our hands and our mouths, but with our eyes. And I think a lot of that has to do with how the brain sort of sends it to us. As we continue this discussion, Dr. Warden, from that perspective, when we look at complementary therapies and when we think, you reference a number of different things. I've seen, horse therapy, equine therapy. I've watched people go, and the smallest individual coming out, much better. The biggest individual who was probably afraid of any animal still interacting in a loving way. There's something about that engagement.
Yeah, no, definitely is. And so there's actually 3 different kinds of horse therapy offered up at Cowboy Town Stables. And there's actually someone doing, so pet therapy is one that you'll see on a lot of the lists as well. So there's Caring Paws, I think it's called. So it's actually someone who will take like therapy support dogs into, so I work with some of the children's homes, so into services like that. I'm assuming probably like the Pines and that as well. So there's going to be, and I'll say a lot of the services like those are therapeutic, aren't necessarily therapy, but can be helpful. So there's going to be that at Cowboy Town. So the kind of therapy I do is equine-assisted psychotherapy. We follow the EGALA model. And the sessions there are where clients will meet us at the arena. EGALA always has a mental health and a horse professional. So I watch the people, Shayna watches the horses. And the observation, so we give an activity that tends to be a very kind of loose instruction, so it's open to interpretation. However, the clients take it to me, and it's really interesting with groups because you'll have 5 people all do 5 different things with with whatever the instructions given. And then it's all very client-centered. So they go out, they have this time with the horses, they come back in, and we say, what happened out there? And so we hear from them what happened. We'll make observations. A lot of times Shayna will be the one to say, look, I noticed that the brown horse moved from this corner to that corner. What was going on? Then we'll hear from the client exactly what that meant to them, if they noticed it, and if they did, what it meant and where they were at with the process. And then we'll relate it back to whatever goals they have as well. A lot of it's done through metaphors, so it's really interesting. And I'll be watching a session with Shayna, and as they're doing work with the horses, I'm like, oh, that's her son who won't who's really struggling in school and refusing to go and refusing to do homework. That's the boyfriend that she's been having problems with. So it's really interesting. I have kind of my metaphors and my ideas, but we always find out from the client. If the client that wasn't what was going on, it's interesting because even things like they'll set up like a course, like a path to, so if it's substance abuse, a path to recovery, if it's grief, a path through grief, if it's a team, it's a path to their goals, right? Or they'll have to actually set up little goals that they'll label for themselves. And it's interesting because we had a client that came in and was working on grief, and there was one part that I knew she was particularly struggling with. And she had a great horse she'd been working with for a few weeks, and she had a great relationship with, and this horse refused to do it. Got to that part, spun, backed up, refused to go through, and I knew that was a part she was particularly struggling with. So it actually took us 2 weeks to get through that part, but she was able to work through what she needed to get in order to move through that part of her grief. So it's really interesting what happens with the horses. So that's the equine-assisted psychotherapy. Do a lot of work we've done with individuals. We've done therapy groups. We've also done team building for groups as well, which is a lot of fun. Different. It can be hot in the afternoons, but it's a lot of fun. She also offers therapeutic horsemanship. So ours would be within the psychotherapy realm, but with horses. Then she has therapeutic horsemanship where kids come out, they learn to look after the horses, so grooming them, tacking them up, they do some riding. So a lot of that skill building competence and self-esteem, building a relationship with the horse. They all have their favorite horses, and they're all different. I was I just assumed everyone's favorite horse was the same one as mine.
Of course.
It was not. They all have all different ones and all for different reasons. Even within groups, they'll all be different ones. So she does a lot of work with kids with autism or developmental disabilities or just different abilities. And so that's where she's a bit different from some of the other riding schools, that she works with kids of all levels and all ages as well. And so that's the therapeutic horsemanship. So even if maybe they're not the best candidate for the EAP, I'll send clients out for the therapeutic horsemanship because that's really great to build their confidence, get them out in the sunlight and the dirt, which is so good for the soul, connecting with the horses. All of them have great stories from Cowboy Town. And she also now offers hippotherapy as well, which is she has a physio that comes out. And it turns out the movement of a horse walking is actually very similar to a human walking. And so putting a child or person with a physical disability, especially with walking, then the horse's movement can actually be helpful in restoring that. But they'll do all different kinds of activities because once they're on the horse's back, they can work on balance, they can work on steering, they can work on, there's a lot of eye-hand coordination as well if they're steering. So, but they're using the horse as a part of the physio treatment. So those are 3 options up there.
This is very fascinating. Now, we see. Perhaps when we come back, Anna, from the break, I'm interested in our relationship with food. And for many of us, it's not just the eating; it's the preparation, it's the company. But for some of us, we have specific perhaps places in our drawers or our houses in the cabinets that we go for that particular thing. But help us to appreciate, is there, what is it about that relationship? Are we eating just to eat? I know some say we eat to live and some live to eat. And let's talk about how we can address, and make it a healthy relationship. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Public Health has released COVID-19 figures for July 11th. Positive cases reported to Public Health during this period are currently 140 over the weekend, 67 on Friday, 40 on Saturday, and 33 on Sunday. There are 832 estimated active cases of COVID-19 in the Cayman Islands. 5 patients were hospitalized with COVID-19 today, and of these, 2 were unvaccinated and 3 vaccinated. The 7-day rolling average for today is 61. There were 7 new cases in the sister islands. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. Russian natural gas supplies to Germany via the Baltic Sea pipeline Nord Stream 1 have been halted for 10 days for annual maintenance work. But Germany Economy Minister Robert Habeck warned that EU countries had to be prepared in case gas shipments did not resume. He has accused the Kremlin of using gas as a weapon in response to EU sanctions over the war in Ukraine. Mr. Habeck admitted Germany had become too dependent on Russian gas. And for the first time in the U.S., a pharmaceutical firm has asked to be allowed to sell birth control pills over the counter. The announcement comes just weeks after the Supreme Court overturned the constitutional right to abortion. The firm, Paris-based HDA Pharma, says its application to the Food and Drug Administration is unrelated. The pills, the most common form of contraception in the U.S., have long required a prescription. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza, open Monday to Friday 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Unleash the leadership potential of employees and managers through the globally acclaimed Ken Blanchard series, now offered at the Chamber of Commerce Training Centre. Designed for new and experienced managers, the Ken Blanchard series will give new leaders the fundamentals of management, and experienced leaders will learn new best techniques to lead and support staff. Make the Chamber Training Centre a partner in your business success. Call the Chamber today at 949-8090 or visit caymanchamber.ky for further information.
Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location. ValueMed on Walkers Road or Boddentown. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks very much for joining us. And the idea of complementary therapies in mental health is we have our monthly mental health mothers, Dr. Andrew Borden, her wonderful intern on course came on, Ms. Jada Bernard, and your healthy place, life coach, right? Sandra Wooten. We can talk about eating, and not just disordered eating, but eating disorders. And I wanted to ask about our relationship with foods, but from Infinite Mind Care, Rachel Farrington and Bobby Jones joins us as we can get into more to neurofeedback, and it's important to look at it, but we all have a relationship with food. For some of us, and maybe for me, I think it's a very healthy relationship, especially when I was able to access my dark chocolate and sea salt. But that's another story, and I'm not anymore. My fault. But chocolate or fish or just food in general, we have a word comfort food. We have this thing, and it's just even by our own actions, we can see that that's the thing we go to when this thing happens. Talk to us about that.
I think the thing with food that's interesting, right, is you have to eat it to live. So it's not like other things where we can develop addictive relationships with them and we can cut them out. We can't survive without food. So it's about figuring out, and there's definitely addictive patterns that can develop with food. There's chemicals within food, right? There's reactions in the body that happen when you eat sugar, caffeine, you hit dopamine hits, things that will keep you going for more and more of that same food. So I think the key when I work with someone is I always start with the awareness. I think when you have awareness, you're a lot more informed and you can make better changes without that beating yourself up, the diet and failure cycle that we get stuck into. It's more about what are our patterns, why are they happening, how can we then address them? And trying to do that with as little judgment as possible, because as I said earlier, I really think that judgment is where we get into trouble. It's what keeps us perpetuating cycles. It's often used, I think we're becoming more aware now as a society, but when we were growing up, it was often used bad food, good food labels, eat your vegetables, then you get dessert. Not a bad rule to have as a parent, right? Because it's an incentivizer, but it teaches you that one is good and you should have it, and one is bad and you get it on special occasions. And right there, you've labeled something that creates a relationship and affiliation. So, sometimes what I try to do with my most restrictive eaters is give them complete freedom to eat whatever they want, because they don't trust themselves with food. And they might go crazy for a couple days, but if anyone's gone on vacation and just let themselves whatever, you eventually want something healthy, or you want your routine back. We're not really designed to just go crazy for ages and ages and ages. So I think it's about learning to trust yourself. It's learning what drives your patterns. There is a bit of life coaching in what I do, because I can talk to you till the cows come home about how you sit down and have your meal and the foods you choose. But if you're always finding that your eating just spirals out of control because you're coming home to an empty house after a busy day and you feel lonely, that's not going to be cured really by how you then sit down and have your dinner. It's probably going to be fixed by encouraging you to get more involved in society and set up more things with friends, reach out and call someone. So that's where it really becomes more than just what you eat. And I think that fixation on what you eat will, of course, foods have nutritional values and benefits, but then we develop things like orthorexia, where people are just obsessed with healthy eating, and they're so rigid about it that they have to measure everything perfectly and have the perfect macronutrient balance. And in some ways, that's great because they're not depriving their body of nutrients or starving themselves, but it's not the most helpful way to live. As we talk about with most things, I think things become disordered or unhealthy when they interfere with your daily life. And if you can never accept a dinner invite because you don't know what's going to be served and you're being that rigid, to me that's interfering with your quality of life, right? Food should not rule you. You can live to eat, you can eat to live, but not if that's dominating every single decision and move that you make. It's just about pulling it into balance.
So let's talk about conditioning and the like. Some of us probably, or are some of us, we are an association. At this occasion, this must be the food or the drink, or if we're having this, or because it's raining, we want the hot soup, or what about those sorts of things? Conditioning and association.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I don't know. Would you feel really upset if your birthday came and went and there was no cake? Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. It depends maybe how much importance is put on that. Right. As a child, a lot of it comes from childhood, right? And that tends to be the deeper work that's complementarily done in psychotherapy or counseling. But it is very insightful because every family is raised different. I was saying in the break that sometimes my faster binge eaters are kids that were raised in big families where if you didn't scramble and shove the food in your mouth, it was gone and you weren't getting any more. So it kind of develops an eating habit that's not the healthiest because you're not giving your body any chance to tell you, do I need more food? Am I full? It's survival mode. So I think it depends entirely on your upbringing, your background, and you can also continue to form associations. A lot of us aren't raised from childhood drinking coffee, but at some point in our student years, our adulthood, we're surrounded by people who are like touting how that it's getting them up in the morning, it's getting them through exams, and so you start developing that same habit, and you start to tell yourself, I can't wake up without this, I can't function at work without this, which is not a true statement, but it's an association you've told yourself and you believe in it, and therefore it will create all kinds of amazing responses in the body to where you even smell coffee and you're like, oh, look, I'm more awake. Is that true? Or is that the power of almost a placebo effect kind of thing, right? It's like telling yourself, I'm taking a pill, I must get better, and no one's telling you it's a sugar pill, and you do feel better. It's amazing the messages that we send to our brain, they have a huge impact on our body. And I think just helping to break down those messages and look at them differently, we do an awful lot of reframing in coaching. An awful lot, because a lot of people will think of themselves as pigs if they eat their whole meal. Other people think they're horribly guilty because they were raised that they're starving children across the world, and if they don't eat their whole plate, then they're not, they're taking their privilege for advantage. It's a messy, messy world, and we just have to unravel it all and actually stick with the facts. What is the fact now? And often it's just, am I full? Am I hungry? Do I want to, even though I'm a little bit full, could I eat this cake because I feel it will make me feel a part of the celebration? I'll really enjoy it without feeling sick. Then eat it. Who cares? People can't always, there's so much, it's so loaded for them. And so what I try to do is just reduce the load and be like, it's not that big of a deal. You're going to have to eat probably at least 3 times a day for the rest of your life. So we got to figure out a way to make it not such an emotional trauma every time you do it. That's what we work
with that then. I mean, we've seen the business where know your customer, but how many of us actually know our bodies? We may eat something or drink something and probably at some point realize, I don't like that. That doesn't make me feel good. Whether it's the flour, whether it's the caffeine, whether it's the alcohol, whether it's the chocolate, whatever it is. But are we paying attention to the potential, coincidence or otherwise? For some
a lot of people aren't. I mean, the amount of times people say to me, I've just been so bloated for so long, for months. I'm like, well, that's not normal, right? And I don't say that in a judgmental way, but that's not, you shouldn't be bloated for that long. So have you considered that it could be something disagreeing with you that you eat? No, I haven't. And then you can start to explore. And that's why I say it's really awareness. It's not awareness to the point of like so much knowledge that you're going to torture yourself with it, which can be what happens with chronic dieters or orthorexics. But it's more awareness to just know how your body responds. And that's the reason that there's been I always say about diet culture, if there was one weight loss diet that worked for everyone, there would not be a diet culture. There's always because what works for you probably won't work for me, and what works for you might not work for me, because we're all different. Our bodies respond to foods differently. Our energy expenditure is different. Our relationship with food is different. So that's why they keep making money, is because there's always a book that will come out that will work for like 4% of the population. That's enough to fund it. And then another 4 will get going with another book and it'll be successful. But really, it's just about learning what works for you.
So lifestyle, understanding. Yeah. So Bob and Richard, from that perspective, I mean, as Anna was sharing, I'm thinking the brain plays into so much. And for me, I say this seriously. If we understood, what our brain does and what it could do, if we could tap into it more, we probably not just get more enjoyment, but we would contribute more to life. I think the brain is the powerful organ as it is.
It is.
All right. So put that in context then. If we're looking at it, whether it's in food, whether it's in our anxiety, whether it's in our work, whether it's in studying, whether it's just the quality of life, the brain and its function, I mean, we need it, right?
I agree with that statement very much. Don't go leave home without it.
Right. So what about research? We see the impact of sleep on the brain and on the body. Is there any research to sort of support, the neurofeedback and this approach to therapy?
Nancy, at the top of your head.
So asking if neurofeedback helps with sleep.
Sleep, if neurofeedback helps with anything. And what research is there, empirical evidence to indicate the benefits of neurofeedback?
Well, we do have a few research articles. I don't have them on hand
with
me now, but it's definitely shown to help reduce anxiety symptoms, to help with sleep disorders, PTSD symptoms.
I think it touches just about every area.
Yeah, I mean, when your brain is more regulated, in general, all of these symptoms we have listed here, they start to come down. And that's our end goal with neurofeedback, is to reduce your symptoms so you're better than where you started. But there is an interesting thing with neurofeedback. I can't remember what study it's from, but they thought that it was increasing people's IQ, but it wasn't. It was just giving you more access to your brain. And so their IQ naturally increased.
We've heard often that, we only use X% of our brain and the like. Any truth to that? And if so, what percentage?
I have no idea in the world about that. I've heard of it, 10% of the brain.
But that much?
Yeah, you do. Let me tap into this. When we both took the same course, the Othmer method of neurofeedback, and we saw an awful lot of research. One of the things that I remember seeing, I'm sure you did too, was a graph where they showed research. Now, neurofeedback's been researched for over 60 years. It's old. It's an old technology, but now it's certainly being changed a lot, but it's still the same thing. But the graph I was looking at had a line kind of almost parallel with the bottom line, the x-axis, and then in the last 10 years it starts almost going vertical. So the amount of research that's being done in neurofeedback in the last 10 to 20 years is exponentially greater. It's tons of it. I think the problem with, I think this is a real bias, but with neurofeedback research is that there's nobody who's going to fund it. If you're selling drugs, you've got lots of money for research and development. Neurofeedback is a one-to-one. I'm going to work with one person at a time. So finding the people who have the wealth to do the real gold standard research really comes down to the dollars. But there's tons of research. I don't remember seeing anything bad about neurofeedback, but lots of good. And nowadays we tend to talk about people like Dr. Van der Kolk, Peter Levine, the polyvagal system, I forget that author's name. The whole view of the brain, how we interact with it, and our relationship with it has changed so much, for me anyway, in 10 years, if not 20, that we're just looking at a new phenomena here with neurofeedback. But it's been around. These things have been happening for over 60 years with neurofeedback.
Yeah. EGALA is in the same position. So there's a lot of research supporting the use of the EAP for especially trauma and addictions. But it's the same thing. EGALA is always putting out calls for people to do research. It's hard to get the funding for it, but EGALA offers grants and helps you figure out how to get grants to support more research being done. And so as people are considering alternative therapies, they can do their own research, look into kind of, the therapist training or the provider's training and the approach. And I will say, these are all different things that work for different people. So, if you're already in therapy, talk to your therapist, see if one of them might be helpful for you. If you've got a psychiatrist, talk to them, or a GP, you can talk to them. Any one of us can kind of let you know what we do, and if it's, if what's going on we may be helpful with. So, I think a lot of these are worth giving a shot, especially if maybe you're not having the results that you're looking for, or if you just want something different, then these might be an option. But all of us should be able to provide information on our training and what we do. And a lot of times there'll be a literature base that we can refer you to.
Or YouTube, and you can find everything.
Yes, true.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. How to boil water. Your next video. Someone's going to use that. But I was just looking at some of the readings early and understanding how there are things that we gravitate to because of their interest. And how we're looking at the use of algorithms in more recent times relative to the deployment of different apps on social media to engage more people. We're seeing how the eyes respond to certain stimuli. So in your therapy then, are you, how do I phrase that? What else are you employing? Are you encouraging patients to maybe take supplements that are like neurotransmitters? What sort of things are you doing?
I have my biases. I mention meditation or mindfulness to everybody that comes through. With everybody, I give them some kind of talk about developmental history and what probably happened to you in childhood, and the things like the ACE study and the fact of our vulnerability when we're children and how we just carry these things forward. But we now have the fully developed brain as an adult. But we get stuck with problems that we've learned, and they can be unlearned. But certainly the obvious, good nutrition, physical exercise, relationship. There may be more, but those are the top of my list right there, I think, for everybody. These are the things we need. When I think about horses, I think about animals that have a relationship and are mindful. They're in the present. They don't have an agenda. They just respond to what's happening with them, with people. So there's so much. I also tell all my clients, pay attention to your own instincts. Often when I'm doing the work and I'll say, should we do this or this? What do you think? They have no idea of the theory, but most times they have a sense of, I think we should do this. And that's what I would do. Yeah.
I would just say also healthy fats and protein is really great for your brain. I'm sure you could probably touch on that a little bit more, but just even if you have coffee in the morning at a healthy level, putting a little coconut oil in there, but just I kind of mention that to people if they can get it in, it's good.
And I'm glad you referenced that because I think we're seeing probably as we look at labels as we look at some of the concerns with food, the nutritional value of some of the foods are questionable. Perhaps. Is that a fair way to say that?
It's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not always, I think sometimes we eat food for value other than nutritional is the best way I can answer that. Because again, you have to be so cautious to not start judging the food because eventually it gets in your brain and it sends this message. And it almost, children are such a great example of this. It tends to be that what you tell them they should have less of, they can't have, they want more of. And it's like a reverse psychology trick to just let them go and be a free-for-all because they'll probably eat so much that they throw up because it's kids too, right? But we can always be a bit like that. We don't really lose that. We tend to really like the taboo. We want to go for what we can't have. And the more we attach, labels to things, I shouldn't have that because it's processed. I should have an apple. The less appealing the apple becomes, So I just talk again about reframing. It's I've heard a really common reframe with exercise. A lot of people who struggle to work out, it's like, don't make yourself go to the gym like, oh, I can't believe I have to do this. Be grateful that you can. Be grateful that your body still moves and serves you. And it's a similar kind of approach to food, is just be grateful that we have the choice. You can choose whatever you want, and whatever choice you make that day is the choice you make that day. It means nothing about tomorrow, and it means nothing about yesterday. And if you can do that, habits tend to be that you do, on average, eat less nutritionally poor food, and you tend to find that you're eating more balanced because you're not always responding to an urge that's driven out of a restriction or a rule or a judgment. And that's really where I think the healthiest relationship will emerge, if I'm honest.
Is it then that as we talk about food and we say relationship, almost for many of us, we insert unhealthy relationship as opposed to potential a healthy relationship with food? Is that even possible?
Yeah, I mean, any relationship in life will have its ups and downs. You're not going to have a relationship with a person that doesn't have arguments and great times and then the average in between. And I don't see why any relationship would be different. There'll be times when you work out and you're like, wow, I'm just going to the gym every single day, or I'm going for a run every day, I'm in routine. There'll be times when you don't do anything for 3 weeks, and there'll be times when you feel like maybe you're just going a bit crazy. That's just life. And the less we think of it and attach meaning to it, the more we'll just go with the flow and live in a more regulated way. And I think that's where the complementary, I can see where it comes in, because if you're understanding why and the background of it, because you're exploring your brain a little more and talking things through, whether it's in therapy or even just, with your friends, but ideally guided by a professional. And then you're actively looking at your habits and coaching your way out of them and into healthier habits. And then possibly even doing deeper work to regulate your brain, to look at your past traumas. I don't see how that's not going to set you up for just incredible success, because you have the awareness and you've taken the action, and you're going to be in the best position you can be to just deal with all that comes your way from life, which will never be a steady state, just like your relationship with food won't be, your relationship with work, anything.
I like how you suggested we should refrain certain things, and that's why word choice is important. So from that perspective, then, are we able to retrain our brain, create more neural pathways, look at the ways? I'm thinking to the study of the navigators and the fishermen in a remote part of the world that use celestial navigation. They don't have to rely on modern technology, and they're seeing how they much more functioning much later in life than many of us younger, because we don't think anymore. The London Cab is probably a good example of how to remember all the routes and using it by hand. So, Ms. Farnton?
You can definitely retrain the brain, whether it's through neurofeedback or other modalities. But it's definitely possible. It may take some time, and some people will take more time than others. But yeah, it does. And neurofeedback has been shown to kind of prep the brain for new learning. So people are actually better at performing on a task or learning a new skill or ability with neurofeedback.
I think we've both found that when we've worked with people, and when when somebody gets towards the end of their training, when I ask them the question, tell me what you experience at this point, you're getting regulated. And the phrases that I get for feedback on that either is, I found my spirit again, I'm more confident, I don't procrastinate anymore, I've come alive again, I'm back like I was when I was in early teens. So it does rejuvenate, because we got the fear down. And when the fear's gone, and we both experienced it doing our own neurofeedback training, is that there's a freedom that comes with that's pretty darned exciting. And then you're open to learning, because all of a sudden I'm not scared of learning new things, or I'm not scared of going on a talk show and performance anxiety. Life becomes better.
Almost like my uncle always said, mind over matter.
Yes.
And it comes back to playing every day.
Yeah.
Right, Ms. Shannon?
Yeah, you're doing right.
And I think you're hearing as well kind of how we can work as a team. So a lot of times, we've talked about multidisciplinary teams, and so this would be another way of expanding your team and the support that people have. So if the person is in therapy, odds are, that the therapist will be talking to us as they're putting together the goals, as they're responding to things. So in that way, you have more people on your side more eyes on you, more perspectives, different personalities, different approaches. And so I think in that way it can be really helpful as well. You know, because sometimes, you know, I'll learn things at the horses that maybe the primary therapist isn't aware of, you know, and that way we can kind of work together to move the person forward. So like if they're in neurofeedback or if they're in coaching, they can talk to the therapist, the psychiatrist, and be able to have everyone on the same page. And that way you're kind of taking a much more holistic approach to it.
And it's more stimulating for me working with people because I'm getting another view and we can share our excitement. Or struggles. There's an issue with the client and getting that through. So it works both sides, both for the client and for us. We're all part of that team.
Yeah.
Complementary.
And if I may add, you'd asked about the supplements, that kind of thing as well, and that would kind of fall into this realm too. And I get questions like that all the time because I know a lot of people don't want medications; they're interested. And I will say, for some people and some particular difficulties they may be facing, medications may be quote unquote necessary, especially the more biologically driven disorders. But a lot of times there might be alternatives, like Rachel had mentioned the omega-3s. And there's certain herbs and supplements that can be helpful. So those are really good for brain and actually good for mood. Vitamin D is good for the immune system with COVID, but also good for mood stabilization. Also good, you can get it from sunlight. A lot of psychiatrists will discuss it. GPs can discuss it. The guys at GNC are actually really helpful as well. If someone's interested. So like I say, it won't always replace medications, but sometimes it can be helpful just to have something else just to boost. You can talk to Miss Anna and get some ideas of how you can get that from the food, which is even better because then your body better absorbs it. But, you know, that's definitely an option too that I think sometimes people aren't aware of.
Yeah, I think it's about that relationship and that complementary sort of approach to our health. And, you know, with food, if we're blend up certain things, just like combining spices and different things as we experiment safely, responsibly, tap into the resources that are here so that we can understand the impact. I like the coconut oil with the coffee. You're only other than me, you're only like the second person that I know that floats it on top, right?
Well, yeah, it's really hard to mix in, so your first sip is usually a big spoonful, but yeah, it's good.
But it's good for you, man. And someone suggested rub it on your temples, but just a thought. Just a thought. All right, let's invite some closing thoughts. Bob, you first, and then Ms. Farrington, and then just go around the table. Any closing thoughts you want to leave for the discussion?
So let me go last because nothing is coming up right now, but I might get
that's why I put you on. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that's okay. Jade actually has a bit of a summary of things.
So
I was going to start with Jade, and then.
Thank you. See, I take that.
It was an intro, but it's a summary of what we were going to discuss. So
I've definitely learned a lot just from sitting here listening, but I know we all touched on the holistic approach, and I think it was really interesting about how the mind connects to the body as well. So it's definitely an interconnected practice because with the eating, it's physical processes in the body, but you're also connecting it to your mental health and your attitude towards it as well. So some of these practices that are complementary or alternative, for example, with a massage, you're sitting on the table, not necessarily speaking to the masseuse, but it's almost scary how much time you're just in your own thoughts, and it's amazing where that takes you. So it's amazing to see how the mind connects to the body in these practices.
Like built-in meditation, isn't it? A massage.
Yeah, so you're not supposed to talk to the masseuse.
I hate talking during a massage, but then I do get up after one, and I'm like, where did my brain just take me? It's like, oh, I don't even know where I went.
Yeah, well, and Van der Kolk taps into all the trauma and how we hold stress in our body as well. So massages can actually release a lot of that too.
If you go into your brain and your mind, you mightn't come back. You keep talking. I'm afraid for that journey.
It's a risk I'm willing to take.
Exactly.
I've tried that before.
I do have a closing thought for me, and that is I go back to many years ago when I was in addictions and doing that primarily, and a potential client was asking, well, what works? You got another number of options. What works? And I just spontaneously said, and I'm really surprised myself, everything works. What do you think will work for you? And I think that's part of in terms of the alternative and complementary therapies, people have to pick up, no, what am I attracted to? And go with that.
Chocolate. With that. I think all I would say to leave people with is when you're thinking about your relationship with food, just remember it starts from the moment we're babies and we're first fed, whether it's a bottle, whether it's breastfeeding. And we can't control that, and try to always remember with empathy, like our parents did the best job they could with what they had, right? And so whatever happened, we can blame it on the parents, as we love to do, but it's happened. The key is however, it's not written in stone. So just because you were raised that way and you develop that association, the brain is absolutely powerful enough to develop a new association completely. That's how we sometimes hated foods and started to like them, or vice versa. When a food makes you sick, you never want to see it again, right? Like there's such an instant, oh no, I got food poisoning from that last time, I won't even look at it. And then maybe years later you start eating it again. It's an association, and it's very trainable and untrainable. So start with just thinking, how was I raised on food? How did I eat? What did that create in me? What were my experiences like at meal times? And that might give you more insight to how you eat now than you realize. And it also shows you what you have to focus on reframing in order to improve that. So it's a lot of power in that awareness, but you just have to think and reflect on it.
Dr. Morton?
Yeah, so, there's all different kinds of therapies available on Island, and I think it's really important that, to look into it, see what makes sense for you, see what you may be drawn to. And any one of us, as I said, will be happy to discuss what we do, how we do it, who it's been helpful for. And so, reaching out to any of us, we can let you know if what we're doing might be helpful for you. There are free counseling services available through the Counseling Center at 949-8789, and that's through the government. And Alex Panton Foundation does have free support groups for 13 to 18-year-olds offered online, 13 to 17-year-olds offered online every other week with Dr. Sherry Smith, and at Parcel 110 on Saturdays with Mr. Shane Purcell for 18 to 30-year-olds. And all that information is available on their website. So there's lots of support available, and lots of different things available on Island as well. I know a lot of times in Cayman, sometimes it feels like, we're just so behind the times. But we actually have a lot more offered here than a lot of people realize. So it's worth it sometimes to try something out of the box.
Hey, I got a thought. Approach it with us after the break. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Hopefully we'll have continued discussions. Always a pleasure. And Ms. Jada, I'm telling you, man, every day I can see Dr. Jada. All right. Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of the week. I can't believe it's Monday. And even though it's, last Monday was the holiday Monday, this is our first Monday of the month, so to speak. Yeah, it's interesting. All right. Well, to our listeners, we've got a couple of things to share with you when you come back. It'll be open line for the remainder of the program, so stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Subway is giving you flavor around the clock with the new Chicken Squad sandwich options. Try the classic chicken and bacon ranch, the sweet and savory barbecue chicken, or the chicken cordon bleu. 3 new appetizing and delicious sub options that you can also make into a wrap. The Chicken Squad is available at Subway for only a limited time. Subway, giving you something to cluck about. Ransomware, DDoS, malware, phishing. If you don't know what those mean, you're not alone. But if you aren't protected against those cybersecurity attacks, then your business is at risk. Don't leave your data or your business vulnerable. Get Digicel Business Protect. Simpler, smarter cybersecurity. Visit our website, www.digicelbusiness.com, to request a callback or call us now on 623-2499.
The Cayman Islands Health Services Authority's general practice and public health clinics have relocated to Smith Road Medical Center. At the new location, you'll receive top quality care in a comfortable, modern space, enhancing your patient experience. Do you have flu-like symptoms or other non-emergent illnesses or injury? HSA's new urgent care walk-in clinic is now open at the main hospital campus. The new general practice location is for appointments only. For more information, call 949-8600 or visit hsa.ky.
Commission for Standards in Public Life reminds all persons subject to the Standards in Public Life Act that declarations are due by 30th of July. If you're struggling to complete your annual declarations of interest, the Commission for Standards in Public Life has a new tutorial video available to provide further guidance. Visit Standards in Public Life Commission.ky/register of interest to view the tutorial video today.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
JN Money, money touchdown. Send the money now. Reach wow. You say you need some money. JN Money, I go send it in a hurry. Get through quick when you come collect your cash or use a money card and swipe it in a flash. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we are pick, yeah. Send and receive funds at any JN Money location. It's fast, affordable, and convenient. Money touchdown with JN Money. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we are pick, yeah.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at JN Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Puritan Cleaners.
Puritan Cleaners, now using the most popular and eco-friendly cleaning solvents. 2 convenient locations to serve you: Savannah Countryside and Eastern Avenue, Georgetown. Drive-through, rain or shine, free pickup and delivery services available. Call Puritan Cleaners 949-7104. Also ask about our in-house discounts. Puritan Cleaners, you feel good when you look good.
Puritan Cleaners, 949-7104. That's 949-7104.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you very much for joining us. And I have to remind myself, is it Monday? Miss Susan, is it really Monday? It's Monday. I think it's July, and I think it's 2022, but if I am not exactly correct, would you call and just confirm? It's interesting, when the month unfolds and you have a Monday holiday that is not the first or the second, it's almost as far as the 4th, 5th, or 6th. Of them, the month, and then the following Monday, as is today, is either the 11th or the 14th or like, kind of, for some, threw us off. And I want to say that to share that there was a fellow who was sharing with me earlier that, his work week changed significantly. Monday through Friday, he worked from a certain time of the day to a certain, time of the afternoon, and that was normal. Now it's, scheduled. So your day off may be Wednesday. Your day off may be that public holiday, or that may be your first day back, as it were. How does that play into everything? I want to share that to ask, in this changing environment where people have discovered, companies, the particular governments, private sector organizations, that as employees and as companies, we can work remotely, or we can work in a different environment, and we can be as, if not more, productive. Now, he said that he was in the UK recently, and circumstances being what they were, they had, like many places, work remotely. And his challenge was that initially, you needed to be disciplined and structured in order to be able to, get up, get ready, go to work. But that commute wasn't the almost 3 hours each way. It was probably less than 30 seconds once he was ready. he found that as he got into the groove, he was able to really, in a short time, do a lot more and be more productive, more responsive to his clientele than he had in the office. Only to discover, even now, that many of his colleagues, his line managers and the like, as it were his words, concerned. Well, are you being as productive? So many, for want of a better word, managers believe that it isn't the output, it isn't the thing that as employees accomplish competently. They have to see you in order to believe that you are at work. Maybe a lot like education, and teachers need to see you in their class and have you logged in to make sure you're there, as opposed to, well, is the work done? Not a system that relying on the individual integrity to ensure that the work is being done by you as stated, but the fact that the work is being done. So what did you think in relation to that? Some of us, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, were working then what would be called remotely now, but maybe we call it telecommuting. Maybe we were trying to set up spaces to be more responsive to our clientele, but perhaps were looked upon in a less savory way, as it were, because we didn't have a fixed office, or unless you were a tradesman and the like, well, your office then was your work vehicle. Well, for some, they saw the importance of being much more mobile, much more responsive. Has the world shifted, and has that shift been better? What about as the fellow shared, not only did he have the concern that many of his colleagues as well as managers were, his words, seemingly jealous that he could avoid the 3-hour commute. He could spend more time with his family. He was getting better reviews from his clients, which he thought was important because he was able to be more responsive. He was getting much more done for himself as well as for his company by not having to go into the office. But they felt otherwise. His only other concern was that he was missing out on whatever was transpiring in the office, that office dynamic, the office politics, the interactions with the colleagues that could lead to invitations for the things, to other opportunities that could lead to promotions, could lead to him missing out on things that would potentially come up that could be beneficial, not just for his career, but personally. And then, of course, that interaction with the colleagues that I think is important, so much so that many of us have retreats. We go on team building exercises. Well, what is your thought relative to how that new working environment may evolve and unfold? Is that something that you would embrace? Is that something that you would want? The individual, some would share, who would love, to be able to work independently from home or from under the coconut tree, as long as the job is done, may have that discipline, may find that going to the office, not just a 3-hour commute, not just having to get up and dress a certain way, and the time, energy, and money that is expended to do so could be better utilized by putting those resources into actually doing the work. But then there, for some of us, we need that structure. We lack that potential self-discipline, and we would not probably be as productive unless we're in the office. Well, your thoughts. 949-8037. Toll free with the compliments of Flow. 1-800-534-8255. Or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. I want to also ask, only because I wasn't paying sufficient attention, lost track of the number of calls and comments from individuals who have been referencing certain things that they've seen in the media, and given the Honorable Opposition Leader's recent statement. Now, a later call and said, she commend the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Roy McTaggart, for speaking to the issue. She did share something that I think it was only at that point that I realized, not only was what she's saying very much what I've been hearing, from a few of the callers over the last couple of days. But she said it in such a way that I think it was unfortunate that it wasn't something that she would have recorded a statement and published it. Likewise, Mr. Mike Taggart's comments that perhaps the Honorable Premier now, and looking at his Minister of Tourism's recent video posting, I think for some of us, we do things without fully appreciating. It's not that we should be forgiven that ignorance is bliss or ignorance to the law is no defense or like. We just innocently do things without appreciating others, do it subtly, and may at the end of the day ask forgiveness and permission. Different things happen, but I think as the lady sort of commented on his comment, she said, is it that this has been par for the course? She gave us an example recently. There was a groundbreaking for a particular development. We have not only 2 elected members of parliament, whether one is in cabinet and the other serving in a different role, but we also have senior civil servants. And she says this is something that has happened for as long as we can remember. Government officials, both as civil servants and as elected parliamentarians, attend groundbreaking. They have golden shovels, they're good PR opportunities. And she always wondered, what is the messaging of that? It's not a public facility like a hospital or a school or some major infrastructure project. This is a private entity undertaking for-profit initiative. Is there messaging? Is there symbolism? Is there some association? Does it leave people to speculate that association, creates something untenable? And she suggests that when we revisit those sort of groundbreaking ceremonies, that perhaps we should reconsider what that may convey as far as people's perceptions. And now that she was so commendable of the Honourable Opposition Leader's statement, perhaps it's something that as the society matures, as the political sort of directorate understands that the standards in good governance, the whole notion of where we are in terms of the code of conduct, it may mean that it's nothing intended otherwise than to be supportive of advancing the economy, but it could create the perception. Is this one of those instances, and what will the consequence? Will ministers be sanctioned? Will the practice cease going forward? Well, your perspective. And do you think, as of all the calls that I received, there was only one that said, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way it should be. And it just shows that you have a forward-thinking politician who's looking at this in a realistic way. All the other calls were sort of along the lines of the Honourable Opposition Leader's sentiments. And as the lady so eloquently sort of set it out, she says, but we're pointing fingers, but are we looking inward? And are we recognizing that historically this has been what we've done all along? And what about when, as she emphasized, we attend these groundbreaking ceremonies? What message and perceptions are we creating? Well, give us your perspective. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. It's a Monday. I don't know about you, but in the English language, I love all the days ending in Y. And if your days are called by other names and spelled differently and end in different letters, well, let's give thanks for those days as well. Let's go to the phones, right, Miss Susan? Hey, welcome. Good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, Mr. Sterling. It's Johan Moxham. How's it going?
Mr. Johan Moxham. Man, it's good to hear from you.
I just called to make sure you still had a job, because the last time we got together, that was kind of spicy.
Is that why I was thinking about you? Man, you've been on my mind, man.
You know the funny thing is, as a consequence of that conversation, I was at a social event, and chief officer in question approached me in a hostile manner to ask me what my problem was with him. And I was shocked, because I rarely ever engage with any of those type of luminaries, and I just kind of I don't think this is the right place. But he was adamant that he needed to understand what my problem was with him and why I make his life hell and why do I hate him. And I was like, I think you think too much of yourself. This is about the standard. And that's the only reason why I'm calling, because whatever the standard is, it has to apply to all of us. So I have a lot of time for the leader of the opposition, but are you telling me now that when they negotiate major concession deals and development agreements, and then they have the ability to then say in the House of Parliament, the former Minister of Planning was the one that did this in response to the then leader of the opposition, Arden McLean, Mr. Joey Hugh, former planning minister, responded to the former leader of the opposition that the development agreements were confidential and commercially sensitive, so he was not able to share that information with parliamentarians in the House of Parliament as if we were negotiating concessions or current and future revenue with his own money. And my point is, you cannot have, or you cannot conduct the business of the country in private, where one group is able to claim that this is commercially sensitive and we can't share that information, and then the next group, who obviously, you know, they've got a lot to learn about protocols and so on and so forth, we make a big song and dance about what has transpired. Because if the former financial secretary who was there in cabinet, who had to agree to the grant of these concessions and these secret sort of deals in the form of these 4 or 5 development agreements, could live with that, we're really making hay with the current situation where you have a minister who should apologize. I think that's the right thing to do, and I get that. But it is a mistake. I don't think it's malicious, but that's just my opinion, and I'm not calling to apologize or to make excuses for anybody. But the former administration cannot be trying to make hay over an issue like this when they basically fought the people, lied to the people, and are proud to say that, you know, they boosted the economy with all of these secret deals and these concessions and these development agreements that they then told us should never see the light of day because they were commercially sensitive. And I think the hypocrisy of all of that is something that we need to look at. Wrong is wrong, whether you did it then or you're doing wrong now. But you cannot take the higher ground, or you should not pretend to be paragons of virtue when look at your own track record. Look at the things that were done. Look at the madness. Look at the fact that the people had to go and sign petitions to fight a project that none of us knew or none of us were comfortable with the answers that they were giving, because they were essentially misrepresenting the facts, right? When you have the former administration telling people you can unverify your verified signature with the elections office, which is a legal concept I've never heard of before in my life, you really can't take them too serious when they're throwing rocks at the new administration. Not that I care about whether the minister is right or wrong. I don't. All I'm saying is, what is the standard? Because if whatever they did was right and nobody had a problem with it then, why is it they suddenly find problems with everything that is done here? And the flip side to that is, if what is being done now is wrong, then surely decisions and actions that they took as a PPM administration or the unity government led by the PPM, surely those actions had to be as bad when you consider, look at elected persons, look at PEPs, politically exposed persons, that may have received contracts, may have received works for some of these very same developments that got concessions. Like, if you're going to investigate and demand accountability on this issue, the Auditor General, the Governor's Office, whoever else is responsible needs to look into every single contract, every single concession, every single development agreement that was made under the previous administration to ensure that no laws were broken and that they didn't infringe or use their positions to gain a pecuniary advantage and to benefit themselves, their families, and so on and so forth. Because clearly now that is the standard that they're expounding. And if that is the standard, let's get down and figure out how we're going to live as a country, because, you know, what has transpired in the press and the minister, right or wrong, if he's wrong, he apologizes, but you're not going to tell me as a right-thinking Caymanian that everything the former administration did was right, and the way that they sold out the country, and the way that they fought their own people, and the way that they lied. You're not going to tell me, given the hundreds of millions of dollars in concessions that they gave away, okay? You can't tell me that that's right, because they obviously know the difference between right or wrong. So if this is wrong now, what you did, you were wrong then. And the country needs to understand there's a reason why they call it politics. There's a reason why they call it politics, because they suddenly can find issues to compel or argue about or to pursue. And I get it, because that's their job as the opposition. But that moral compass should have been in place, or that ethical compass should have been in place at all times, especially when they were leading the country over a 2-term period. You can't pick and choose your moments when you're going to be right. You're either consistently right or you're consistently wrong, because the issue is the standard, not the personality involved, but the standard of doing the right thing. And it's fair to say, if they had done the right thing, they'd still be in charge of the government, but clearly they did enough where people got tired of their shenanigans, tired of their breaches, and tired of their sort of insults and lack of respect for the public, where a change was made. So that's the basis upon which I've called in, and I've kept it very generic. But if we're going to investigate and sanction anybody for this, we better be able, or the powers that be better be willing to investigate all of the concessions, all of the development agreements, and everything else that was negotiated by the previous administration, because right is right and wrong is wrong. And if this is the sin that causes somebody their seat, then surely there must be some sort of sanction and criminal sort of investigation for abuse of office by the previous administration, given the number of issues that were questionable during their time.
So with that sort of, who would lead that? Would that be the Office of the Governor through the notion of good governance?
Well, ultimately the Office of the Governor is responsible for good governance, safety, and security. The Auditor General's office exists and reports directly to the Governor's office. So surely, if we're going to now have an investigation or cause a lot of issues over this issue, and again, don't get me wrong, if this issue is wrong and it has broken the rules, fine, I can live with that. All I want as a citizen of this country is, what is the standard? What is the standard? And let that standard apply to the present administration and the past administration, because you would swear that they did nothing wrong and honey melted in their mouth and everything was dandy. But look at all the things we don't know. When the former Minister of Planning can tell you that he cannot share details of a negotiated and agreed of 4 development agreements, what does that tell you to parliamentarians where they have parliamentary privilege? What does that tell you about the system?
Points to be taken, and as we go into the break, listener says, caller, you're so right in what you said about some of the politicians. Not all of them, but some of them. Thank very much, Johan Moxon, for your comments. Let's pause and take this news break. Join us after.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
If you're a patient of or a visitor to the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority, HSA West Bay Clinic, the parking lot will be temporarily closed today for resurfacing. HSA says temporary parking will be available at the West Bay Primary School parking area adjacent to the clinic while the work is underway. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. Limited fuel and gas supplies have resumed in parts of Sri Lanka after a weekend of tumultuous anti-government protests over the economic crisis. Long queues formed at filling stations and community centres across the capital, Colombo, today, thronged by thousands of weary residents. Fresh supplies came as a relief for a city on the edge after months of shortages of fuel, food and other basics. And India is set to become the world's most populous country next year, overtaking
China with its 1.4 billion people, according to UN figures. By this November, the planet will be home to 8 billion. But population growth is not as rapid as it used to be. It is now at its slowest rate since 1950 and is set to peak, says the UN, around the 2080s at about 10.4 billion, though some demographers believe that could happen even sooner, but the population of the world is expanding unevenly. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
We wanna go and dally.
Backyard, Caymanian and Jamaican cuisine. 7 Mile Beach might have changed, but Backyard is bringing it back. True Caribbean food in the heart of 7 Mile, just like Mama's home cooking. Brown stew snapper, Cayman-style beef, jerk chicken, turtle stew, and the delicious list goes on. Dine in, take out, or order with the Bento app. Backyard, Caymanian and Jamaican cuisine, 269 West Bay Road, or call 746-4603. Backyard, daily lunch specials, and the one-of-a-kind Fun Day Sunday brunch.
Backyard.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for sharing with us. It is open line for the very end of our program today, 949-8037. That's 949-8037. Toll free with the compliments of flow if you so choose. 1-800-534-TALK, 1-800-534-8255. And you can WhatsApp 925-3261. I'll give you one more number, 949-6990. If that would work better for you, hey, use them all, use any of them. Just use them in order to share your thoughts. To Johan Moxham's comments in relation to good governance and the like, and the notion that, what is it our elderly folks would tell us, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. What is the standard, and should we ensure that the standard cuts across all so that it applies equally to one as it does to the other. Now, quick message during the break, sort of picking up on what we shared earlier. Came back, and honestly, we would see the groundbreaking ceremonies and many of us would applaud him. We probably didn't see anything other than, hey, that's a politician, getting some needed PR. Probably like me, many of us didn't read into it. No big deal, It's something that's happening. That's the minister responsible for this thing, so that's probably why that particular politician was there, or that person is in, that particular district where the project is going. Again, and it's probably just a very innocent, simple, without any sort of inference. But following the comments that I've received recently, and especially from that lady as she shared, maybe it gives us time to rethink, especially in the environment that we find ourselves now. And is it just that it's unfortunate that this is the way things are either spun? It's, what's the word many have now been told? The optics, as it were. And then to Mr. Moxham's sentiments, the commercial sensitivity. Should there be such a thing, or when it comes to negotiated concessions? Should there even be negotiations for concessions? Should it be, as former parliamentarian Mr. Ezra Miller had shared many times publicly, if you're looking to do a particular project, this is the particular area, and these are the allowed concessions, and they're open to all on Sunday if you meet the threshold. Should it be as he has shared when we were rezoning properties? We were going to rezone the area, not particular parcels for the people. Maybe it is time. Now, the other thing that I wanted to broach with you is the increasing number of individuals, Caymanian and non-Caymanian alike, from the Caymanian who goes back to generations to some who've only been here decades, or in recent times, the cost of property, either on developed vacant land or private homes or homes in multifamily developments, stratas and the like. Some have been, how the best to put it, with growing alarm, expressed their views that not only are we making it almost untenable for people to continue to live here, making it almost impossible, as one of the gentlemen shared with me, to not just retire and to live, but to be able to purchase, to afford to purchase, to build and to maintain. And what, if anything, can be done? Well, is it something that you're concerned about? Is it something that we can address? What is your perspective? We're seeing not just younger Caymanians expressing concern that they've saved, they've sacrificed, they've studied, and now they're hoping to be able to cement their place in society, and they want a bit of home ownership, but they can't. Even for those who may be able to find something, some have shared that, well, someone comes and outbids by a significant amount. Yeah, and that's the free market economy, as it were. Should it be interfered with? Well, what is your thought? 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261, and of course 949-6990. A lot of numbers. I would almost joke and say, if you can't remember what any of those numbers, then just call us on another number so we can give you those. 949-6990, or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. And another sort of pressing issue that some have shared is not just the pace of development, but the growing sort of approach to changing the face of some of the developments, the redevelopment of certain parcels of land, or the redevelopment of certain areas, and that impact on the surrounding communities. Some individuals have shared that, well, in this area there were only single family homes, or if there were developments, then there were only 3 stories or maybe no higher. Then we're seeing 5 and 7 and proposals for 10. How would that affect the surrounding communities? Not just the way they would look and the aesthetic, but the privacy, the potential access to sunlight, or the views that were enjoyed. Now, is that something that should be of concern? Over the weekend, I drove with someone consciously to look at certain areas, and the easiest one would be along West Bay Road. You see developments increasing on both sides, but presumably and predominantly on the beach side, creating nice shaded areas on the road. Well, for some that may be nice, but what is the consequence, if any, to that? And then the bridges that are over the roads that are making it difficult, if not impossible, for certain vehicles or certain types of goods to now move further into West Bay, as development over the decades may continue. If they can't get under the bridges, are there alternatives? If so, what is the cost, and who bears that, and what then is that impact? Were those things that were considered? Is it now too late? As the fellow was sharing with me, and understanding that maybe we're not looking sufficiently far enough into the future as to what impact the things we're doing now will have, not just on us down the road, but even on us right now. He gave us an example. If we continue at the pace of development, and we're bringing increasingly larger numbers to help to build those developments, perhaps to work once the developments are completed, then is that affecting society, and if so, to what extent? Is it a negative consequence? Are we conscious of what it would look like 5, 10, 50 years down the road if that is sort of progress the way that it's advertised or expected. Well, for many, they're not really worried about tomorrow because they see it even impossible to survive today. And for some, 5 years may be an eternity. And the way the world is, that level of uncertainty, they're going to, what's that we say? Make hay while the sun shines, and see that as no need to make any sacrifice, because, well, they may not be here to benefit from it or to be impacted by it. Well, is that the approach we should have? Your thought. Hey, 949-8037, 949-8037. Toll free with the compliments of Flow at 1-800-534-8255. And then the other thing I wanted to share, I was hoping to be able to speak directly to two individuals who had shared a similar story some time ago, but as it were, that it didn't materialize. But just again over the weekend, a number of individuals indicated that they had experienced certain things that perhaps need to be addressed or acknowledged, at least, discussed in a format that if there's an issue, should no longer be ignored. And it comes down to something that we had shared recently. We asked the question, to what extent is racism, discrimination, and, I struggled at times to even think that we have those behaviors in our society, but this growing division that is in our communities. And we asked that question following an experience by a number of individuals who said, they didn't believe it. Some at, particular restaurants, some just at beaches and other properties. There was a video some must may have seen where there was a rather shameful, commentary and complaint by someone in our community relative to, the expectations and behaviors and thinking, well, I'm here, I should be able to do in this space, and to the exclusion of others. And over the weekend, apparently a few of you have experienced similar things, and I'm wondering if it's a growing issue or if it's just that more of us now have grown tired of feeling that way and are sharing it more frequently. So either it's increasing or we're just more willing to share. But I'll give you an example. A couple of individuals shared that they were at a particular hotel property. They were enjoying the fare, the food and the like, and was spending a few hours there. Said it was a treat, a special occasion. They thought, this would be a nice place to go. We'll go, we'll spend, we'll enjoy it, and make wonderful memories. Only to have been informed that normally, well, if you're not staying at the property, we really, don't normally serve, outside guests and the like. And the fellow said, well, I didn't understand that. We made reservations, we sat, we ate, we enjoyed, we availed ourselves of whatever amenities were available to us. Okay, we're not going to retire to a room at the hotel, but we ate and drank. Surely that should be a guest of the property. Oh no, that's not it. We're only for staying guests. Now, is this something that is new? Is this something that has always been the case? But increasingly, a number of you have expressed that has been the sentiment. Now, we're not advocating, or any of us would have believed that this was how we were reared, that we would go onto a property and just use it as if it was ours. If we're not, paying customer at the property, well, we wouldn't use the facilities. That may occur at times, but it's a behavior that perhaps isn't one to be encouraged. Now, as you think of that, perhaps you share with us if that's something that you've either experienced firsthand or have it from, as they say, a reliable source. Another instance that occurred, a group of friends are out enjoying themselves, and this is where the issue of race or class or the like comes into play. She shared that the handful of them were sitting there and enjoying the birthday celebrations, very, very glad to see another year and another day. No one is loud and drunk, and only to be told, by the server, hey, you're gonna have to soon leave. Now, she says, to her knowledge, this isn't a place that has, first seating and a second seating and the like. Up until that point, they've gone there and have been there for much longer. Sometimes smaller groups, not spending as much as they were that day. And not a question as to whether they will be able to afford it, because seemed to be a growing practice. They had to give their credit card, and only she says that after the fact that they realized they had run the card initially for a significant amount, which she thought was okay, not just taking it for a small amount, and then ran it again before the bill was tabulated for even a larger amount. So they didn't have an issue with whether or not they would be paid, because the card was already there. But to be treated, it almost invited to leave. Well, let's pause and take a break and then join the callers. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross, now at Vant Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter will be taking appointments from July 11th to 16th at his Crew Road Clinic. Appointment slots are limited, whether you're seeking advanced skincare, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles. Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drporterkman@gmail.com or call 946-9020 to book your appointment today. That is 946-9020.
Centennial Towers in West Bay.
But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. It is open line as we go straight to the phones. Hey, welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you today?
Very blessed and thankful. How about you?
I'm good, thank you. I was just listening to what you were talking about with Johan Moxham. I always love to listen to him because he's very analytical, and very often I learn something from him.
Mm-hmm.
See, the issue about commercially sensitive information, I have always found that very, very interesting, because everybody has asked a question, I would like to believe, that how can it be commercially sensitive when you are essentially foregoing some tax or some other thing that you might collect from the people who want to invest in Cayman? How can that be commercially sensitive? Now, if I can turn it around a little bit, there are certain cases where people don't get the concessions and they have to pay those particular charges and taxes or whatever it is. But if that happens, those payments do become part of the finances of government. They are put in the budget, in the expenditure, and so on, and we get to know about them because those financial statements are made public. So how can you say that when those charges are paid, they are not public, or they are not commercially sensitive? But when they are not paid, then you say they are commercially sensitive. I just don't follow that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another way in which you can look at it is to say, if you are entering into a contract with, say, a company, and there is some proprietary things that company has, and they wouldn't want to reveal that information publicly because it might put them at a disadvantage with some competitors. I can understand that. But how can you say that if we give you a concession, then we are not going to tell the public, our public, the ones who are actually giving the concession are the taxpayer? How come you're going to say, well, we can't give the taxpayer that knowledge of how much of your money we have decided not to get? At a logical level, it doesn't make sense. I mean, if I want to find out today about the defense expenditure in the United States, there are places I can go to, and I have the figures there. They can tell you today, for example, that the United States spends, if you put together the first 25 countries, what they spend on defense, the statistics say that the United States spends more than the next 25 countries combined. And most of those are the allies of the United States. How do people have such information? Because it is publicly available. So you are telling me that you have certain information which is so commercially sensitive, and you can't show it to the public, let alone to the people whose money you are foregoing? I find that hard to follow. And then secondly, it seems to me that there is not even an internal body to which this accounting can be done. I don't know if in the Public Accounts Committee whether they do actually disclose these matters, but disclose them under in camera, like confidentially. I don't know, because I don't imagine that they do that either,
But why should it be? As you said, why should it be commercially sensitive? I mean, this is public funds, a benefit accruing to some entity at the expense of the country. Should it be commercially sensitive? Should there even be such a thing in that context?
No. First of all, there shouldn't be anything like that, and precisely for the reason that a lot of people have pointed out, and I'm trying to add my own 2 cents to the issue. Okay, it shouldn't be commercially sensitive, but okay, if they claim that it is commercially sensitive, then you see you can deal with such issues by legislation. You can define what is commercially sensitive and what is not commercially sensitive.
Right.
And if you want to do it by legislation, then it means you have to draft a law. It has to go to the Legislative Assembly, the people's representatives. Then they will say, okay, if it is in this category, yes, we don't want to hear about it because it's commercially sensitive. If it's in this category, it is commercially sensitive. Now, I believe that if you go through that process, I suspect that the final result will be you will find that there is no information really which is so commercially sensitive that it can not be told to the owners of the money that you are foregoing. I just don't think that works. The other thing I wanted to add very quickly, Dwayne, is that, you see, when you go through these documents which the World Bank and these other bodies issue to recommend ways in which you can avoid corruption, this is one of the things they say. If you just give carte blanche to the executive to say they can say this is commercially sensitive, there's no definition of that, there's no accounting, there's no third party who can look at it. That's what gives an opportunity to corruption, because there's no reason really why that should not be disclosed. So, well, that's the thing. The other thing I was going to mention, I don't know if you listened to, well, I shouldn't ask you if you listened to. I believe this morning I had a chat with OC about, I believe one minister has issued a video to support the wife's business. And the leader of the opposition has issued a statement to say that is improper. I think government needs to look at that. I haven't read the video, but I mean, OC is a credible individual, and he actually read the statement which came out from the leader of the opposition, so it's quite authentic. And to me, I think that's something that government needs to look at. But I am informed that actually these ministers, they are given a very good orientation when they do take up these positions. They are given certain documents. The orientation sometimes involves individual meetings with particular ministers, and I think they need to be able to look at that, because if it is true that this minister has issued a video supporting the wife's business, that is a rookie mistake. It should never happen, and then government should take an opportunity in this particular case to deal with that issue, because it's really, really terrible, because it is embarrassing. To me, it's embarrassing to the government. I feel sorry for the Premier that now he had to deal with another issue of a minister possibly having overstepped their bounds.
Right. But as you mentioned that, I'm glad that you did, because we received a number of comments on it. And I shared one earlier from a lady who, as I listened to her, I realized, wait a minute, a few other comments were similar. Like hers was just much more eloquent and pointed. But she shared that to date, we are accustomed to seeing parliamentarians, whether cabinet ministers, but also civil servants at groundbreaking ceremonies. There was just one, was it last Thursday as well? And Minister Bryan, Parliamentary Secretary Seymour, and one of the chief officers, I think, was in the press release. So her comments were, these are probably just innocent things, but what are the optics of it? So from your perspective, is that an issue too, that these groundbreakings that have taken place to date, and we don't think anything of it, it's just another opportunity for more publicity? Are those things that will be subject to sort of a similar inquiry as well?
Now, I've seen those groundbreaking ceremonies, but just if I can just get a little more detail on it, are these like private entities that of private companies which are breaking ground for their projects? Is that what they are?
Yeah, and that was her comment. She says, if it's a government project or if it's a significant public partnership with infrastructure, like, hospitals, schools, those are different. But where there's a private developer, breaking ground on a new condo development or a new subdivision or something, a private entity, should that be revisited, and what are the optics, what perceptions are being created in the public's mind? And does that give ground for further thought and speculation that, this is this and that? Her mind was, hey, this was just the way things were, and nobody gave it a second thought. It was nothing more than good PR. But in light of that statement, her view was, maybe we need to revisit that. Your thoughts?
Yes. I understand it now. Yes, in fact, that's what I wanted to be sure of. I did see the groundbreaking. Yes, you have to make a distinction between government projects where government is spending government money to build a school, a hospital, and so on. The ministers actually should be there. But if it is like a private hotel, okay, and those kinds of things, it doesn't give a very good impression to the public. You remember there was a little bit of an issue when they did the cruise port facility or something. There was also an issue that there were tenders which were put out there, and then the government was already identifying with the company and so on.
Right.
That gives an appearance of corruption, whether or not there is corruption there. And I agree with those people who have expressed that view, that they need to make that distinction.
Right.
Again, this goes back to the government. Government needs to be able to draw proper guidelines regarding this and to take care of it, because corruption is like justice. The appearance of it sometimes is as important as the fact itself.
Indeed. But always benefit from what you share, and thank you very much for taking time to call us. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you. You too.
All right. And to our listeners, we certainly appreciate your input, and we want to ensure that the areas are always open and accessible. So thanks to Flo for the toll-free line, and thanks to all of you for listening and for calling and sharing your thoughts with us. Well, it is Monday. Yes, it is the 11th of July, and for many of us, we're looking very, very eagerly and anxiously and very, very, deliberately towards a very beautiful summer. So let's draw alongside each other. Let's enjoy the wonderful sunshine, and let's ensure that our actions, in fact, bring greater joy and fulfillment and happiness to all and sundry. A lot of good things to share as the week unfolds, but for now, let's just go through the rest of the day safely and sensibly. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
After all that talk,